Let's talk about the Mormonification of The Bachelorette. If you are watching this, I assume you've heard the news that Taylor Frankie Paul from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives has been cast as The Bachelorette. She announced it on Call Her Daddy yesterday. This is interesting, but not surprising. If you keep up with corporate maneuverings at all, then you know that Disney owns both Hulu and ABC, so this is a nice piece of corporate brand synergy. This is interesting on its face because Taylor Frankie Paul is sort of a divisive figure. On the Bachelor subreddit right now, there is sort of a divide between the fans where Taylor Frankie Paul had a domestic violence incident where she attacked her ex-fiance. It's actually kind of crazy because it happened while they were filming the first episode of the show. So she leapt at him and threw a metal chair and hit one of her kids, and it was like a huge thing. She is now sober, she has apologized, but a lot of people still continue to hold the fact that she did have a DV charge. I don't know what happened with the charge. I know that it wasn't expunged from her record because someone on Reddit was very, very serious about making sure that we knew. From the way that they've both talked about it, it seemed like they used to get really fucked up together. He's a recovering addict and a cheater and a liar. So based on her story, it seemed like she attacked him because he was either lying about using drugs or cheating on her, both of which he has admitted to on the show. But there still is obviously this moral gray area where it's like you shouldn't leap at someone. And I'm saying that very clearly during the video so that nobody accuses me of defending her or pretending that this didn't happen. The Bachelorette has not been good in a while. There have been multiple seasons of floundering ratings. They went through a whole mess with the last season, and Charity had a decent season, but it was very short, and they just can't find the right person to steer the ship into the future, which is why I find this really interesting. Taylor Frankie Paul is kind of a mess, right? She's a really good reality star because she is unapologetic, she is brash, she is very, very aggressive. Some of the most iconic Bachelorette moments are when the Bachelorettes actually confront the guys, right? And stand up for themselves and declare themselves and have agency, right? Because this process is not necessarily one with a ton of agency. You're sort of put on a conveyor belt and carried off into the sunset where you will eventually meet your husband, which is why the Mormonification of it all is interesting. I always have to say her full name because it sounds weird to just say Taylor Frankie. Taylor is not an amazing Mormon, right? I don't know where she stands with the church, but she is sort of stuck with Dakota because they had a kid together. She is divorced. She has a kid with her ex-husband, right? So there's just a lot going on in her personal life. The Bachelor is a deeply conservative franchise and a deeply regressive franchise, right? I wrote about this last year for Forbes. I've talked about it in this playlist. It just is. The idea that you are courting, the idea that you will find your special magical person who is your soulmate after 6 weeks, or if 6 weeks, right? And you just will know and stay together for the rest of your lives, even though almost none of the couples are still together. It aligns very nicely with this idea that Mormonism sort of promotes that, you will stick with one person forever and then you will only get into heaven if you have a husband. I learned that from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. The way that they talk about the show, right, the fairy tale, the process, knowing, finding your person, finding your one, all of it is very archaic. All of it is very deeply coded in a very specific way, and it always has been, right? If anything, I would say that it's getting more and more Christian and more conservative as the years go by. The beauty standards get more aggressive, right? It was national news when there was a girl with short hair. You can see the beauty standards shift season by season, especially when you look at The Bachelor, right? Look at The Bachelor season 1, the women of The Bachelor. Look at the women of the most recent season of The Bachelor, right? The fillers and the hair and the bodies. It is a very specific vision of America and personhood, and that's why only a very specific type of person thrives on this show. I don't necessarily know if Taylor Frankie Paul is going to bring the show into the future, but I do know that it's bringing it closer to its ideal, which is, again, conservative. I'm going to watch the season because I like her. I think she's interesting. I think she's a disaster, and I am excited to see her yell at men. But I'm just worried about what's going to happen after this, where if we're already sort of leaning this way, and then the men are going to come from her pool of guys, what exactly we are moving towards.